listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Damn Podcast. I am your host, Angie Machado. Join with me, as always, Jake Hedberg. I am back, Jake, in Portland, waiting for some snow. Hawaii was awesome, but back in my home office. How are you?
Doing well. Excited for some snow hopefully tomorrow.
So 7 inches down in the valley. I think they're saying maybe 5 here, so we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
When they call for snow, sometimes it doesn't happen, but I have one excited 17-year-old here hoping that snow falls. So, no, it's good. We have an exciting show today. Baseball season. I mean, we're talking snow, but it is baseball season officially starting this week. On Friday, we're coming to you live here on Wednesday afternoon. So the Beavers are heading to surprise Arizona so they have 4 games Friday through Monday. So we're going to talk a little bit about the team, who's coming back, the newcomers, and really what to expect. We also have a really special guest. I'm going to bring him on from College Baseball Central, Mark Garland. He is the director of West Coast content and knows a lot about college baseball, a lot about the Beavers. Mark, how are you?
Doing great. Hear you guys talking about snow, and I got a foot outside right now. We're planning to get more tomorrow as well. So
amazing. So Mark is joining us from Redmond. Love that area over there. Someday I maybe move over Bend, Redmond area, but we're excited you can join us because Beaver baseball, I was telling you before we jumped live, my world kind of revolves all about football. It's football 24/7 year round, but baseball is such a huge part of Oregon State and just the success they've had over the past, 2 decades. Huge implications this year. Lots to talk about with an independent schedule. Lots of returners coming back. This was a team that, I think they had a great year last year, but you would ask them and they didn't hit their goals. So this is a team that's hungry to get back to Omaha. So we are going to just jump in and really kind of talk about how I have it broken down is we're going to talk about players, kind of about the impact newcomers, strength of the Beavers, the 25 Beaver team. And then we're going to talk about schedule and kind of what's coming up here in the next couple weeks as the Beavs hit the road. But I think it's important that we talk returners because there's a lot of guys coming back for this squad. Who just off the top of your head, Jake, and Mark, I mean, you guys both jump in here. Pitching wise, are you really excited coming back?
Jake,
yeah, I mean, I think. Go
ahead, man.
Okay, Jake, you go.
I think any other answer than Nelson Keljo here is a little interesting. I think what he put down towards the end of last season, I mean, his last 4 appearances, he was lights out. I want to say went 11 innings, allowed 2 hits, and didn't allow a single run. What we saw there in those 4 appearances, those 2 to 3 inning stretches, if Nelson can stretch that out to even 5 or 6, frames, I think he can really be a dynamic player that elevates himself to a potential first-round draft pick. And I think on Friday we're going to see what jump Keljo's made, developing 2 off-speed pitches, and I think it's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, he's made just an enormous jump between last season, halfway through the season into this year. And Nelson's earned the Friday night job. He earned it. He's going to have it. It's going to be all his. It's going to be his to lose, and I don't think he loses it all season. The guy is tremendous, big, strong kid. Love his heart. And you're talking about a couple guys coming back too. Leif Palmer, James DeCramer.
Yeah.
Guys that had minimal roles last year. Leif was hurt. That's why he didn't get the role that he thought he was going to have. He's healthy. He's going to be in there. James Kramer. Grandpa Month is back for his 8th year of college baseball. Lovingly call him that. Great guy. AJ Hutchison, side armor, submarine guy coming back. I mean, the returning pitchers are crazy. This is the deepest and best staff I've seen at Oregon State in my time covering them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not even mentioning Segura, who was Oregon State's Sunday starter last year, and now he's a guy who's not even starting, which I think speaks to the depth of this staff. I think Coach Dorman did a great job going and grabbing talent as well to kind of complement the guys that Oregon State had coming back. And overall, I feel the same way. I feel like as long as I've been watching Oregon State baseball, this might be the most deep pitching staff. I mean, they've got really 4 to 5 guys that can start, and then 9 to 10 quality arms coming out of the pen.
Yeah, and that's, I'm looking here from the game notes that Oregon State released. Kelto gets that start Friday night or Friday afternoon with Xavier. Then you have true freshman Dax Whitney. And I was going to wait and talk about him a little bit later, but we're going to jump in and talk about him. But then Ethan Kleinschmidt is your kind of day 3 right now. Tell me about Dax Whitney, Jake, because that was a big get for Oregon State. True freshman. Yeah. All indications were he looked to be heading to the MLB, but is in Corvallis.
Yeah, I mean, Dax Whitney is, in my opinion, the most talented pitcher on this roster and probably the most talented pitcher Oregon State's had in a very long time. And that's including names like, Cooper Jerpy. I think he has the potential to be even better than that. Coach Dorman said he's a guy who, if he develops right, could be the number 1 overall draft pick, which is special. He's a freshman, touches 98, 99, which is just incredible. Turned down a lot of money. I still haven't seen him pitch yet. I believe you have, Mark. If you just want to touch on that.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. On draft day, I got a note that said if he doesn't go in the first round, he's coming to Oregon State. And I was shocked because I knew he was a second-round guy. I was like, he's probably not going to jump in the first 37. As soon as they call it 37th name, it's not him. I'm celebrating. People around me going, what are you doing? I'm like, I know who we just got. We just got Dax. This kid is tremendous. Big, strong kid, throws a lot of strikes, leads with the fastball. He has a wipeout curveball. He throws changeup. The guy mixes in 4 pitches for strikes, which you just don't do at this level. And he's doing it as a freshman, stepping on there with just no reserve, just going out there and beating people up. His teammates say he's just tough to hit already, and he hasn't even really started his college career.
That's crazy. I mean, think about him now getting into a college program with strength and conditioning beyond what he was getting, with private club ball.
I'm pretty sure he said he put on like 20 pounds already since he got to Oregon State, that's 20 pounds in 6 or 7 months. And that's very promising.
Okay, so Jay, I want to go back because did you say Dorman mentioned him potentially being a first number 1 overall pick?
I've heard he said that on the Joe Beaver show. Yeah.
So I mean, Oregon State's already had Adley. They had
that 10 years would be
bananas. Okay, how about Ethan Kleinschmidt?
Yeah, I mean, Kleinschmidt's a guy that killed it at the JUCO level. I want to see it a sub 1 or damn near a sub 1, which is impressive regardless of which classification you're pitching at. This guy who kind of fell through the cracks. He played for a smaller school, killed it at Lynn Benton last year, and he's another lefty arm, which I know has been kind of a gripe from some people. Has been a lack of that, but now with Kleinschmidt, Keljo, 2 out of Oregon State's 3 starters are lefty. I've heard that the velocity isn't as high, but again, I think he's a guy who's got some pretty nasty off-speed pitches.
Mark, have you seen him?
He beats up the strike zone. So what he does is he attacks hitters. He goes right after him, and Rich loves that. He wanted a guy that's going to go throw strikes and go beat up and attack hitters. He hides the ball really well, and his stuff comes from the same arm slot. So you see his slider and his fastball and the changeup. They all come from the same slot. So when they're coming through that same window, hitters are having a really hard time picking up, and he keeps the ball hidden away from hitters behind him for a long part of that pitching rotation. And, man, he's tough to hit. He went out there and earned the Sunday position right now, beating out guys like Segura and Palmer and DeCramer for that spot. So I'm excited. Like Jake said, he had just over a 1 ERA in college and threw for Eddie Peterson. Really was great last year, and people didn't know if he would translate. Well, the hitters here at Oregon State have said it translated, and it's really tough to hit.
Like you said, this is the deepest that we've seen Oregon State pitchers. Now we just need to keep them all healthy. I mean, that's always it seems to be the kind of the Achilles heel, I think, for most college programs is keeping guys' elbows and arms fresh. But when you have guys that you can rotate in, hopefully that will do that. Other key returners. Oregon State returns a lot of guys. You look at that infield. You got Trent Carraway, Jacob Craig, Gavin Turley, Wilson Weber. How excited, Mark, are you for this? Then the guys around the pitchers.
Listen, people are worried that we lost Travis. Great 1-1, tough to replace. They've gone out and done it. They've brought in these guys, and these guys returning. Jacob Craig is going to take steps forward. I feel swing rate was bad last year on the misses. He's picked up. Wilson Weber getting the full-time catching duties this year. Trent Caraway is a first-round draft pick. He's going to be taken somewhere in the top 30 picks more than likely this season as long as he stays healthy. He has that ability to be a game changer in the infield for these guys. And him healthy for a full season, he's a guy that can hit 20, 25 home runs with no problem at all. I'm very excited to see what Trent does coming back healthy this season.
Yeah, if you guys have been watching the damn podcast for any time, we had Trent on last season. And Jake, I know we're going to be working on getting other players on throughout the season as well. But yeah, super excited. But they also brought in Iva Arquette, huge transfer. Tell me about him, Mark.
He's a first-round talent. 6'5" shortstop. So the left side of the infield is huge. They're very tall, very big, very athletic. He's looking to be first-round picks, or somewhere in the top 15, probably taken in the draft this year. Very smooth for being 6'5", very athletic. He's a guy that's probably going to hit somewhere in the 10 to 15 home runs for you, but he's going to hit for average. He's going to be a 350, 360 hitter. They don't know where they're going to put him out in the lineup necessarily. It's going to be somewhere in the top 5. But this guy is an instant run producer, and the biggest thing is he's so good defensively that you don't lose anything by having a 6'5" shortstop that can hit.
That's crazy. So, okay, Mark, lineup? Who do you see being that leadoff, and who do you see being cleanup?
It's really – there's a lot of things that can move, right? There's guys in there like Jay Petrosky, AJ Singer, and Adam Hite. They're all guys that are battling for that second base position, right? And Adam Hite, he even might be a guy that hits DH. I think that you're looking at more of maybe like an Easton Taller, Cannon Reeder, whoever wins that center fielder job. They're probably going to be the leadoff guy. And then you're going to go to Dallas Macias, and you're going to go through to Gavin Turley and Trent Caraway there somewhere in the 1 through 4. But you have so many good hitters. It really doesn't matter where you put them. You can put them anywhere 1 through 6, and you're going to be very happy with what you see. Looking at this lineup and going, oh, Jacob Craig's going to be a 5 or 6 hitter. That's crazy. The guy can hit 25 home runs this season.
Well, last year I thought the batting order was stacked. Is this year going to be stronger?
As a full lineup, yes. I believe that the full lineup in total will be a lot stronger. I think a lot of it last year was inconsistencies. You saw a lot of swing and miss. There's a lot of guys this year that hit for more average and with that pop, but I think that you're just getting so much talent there and guys returning that are just hungry and wanting. And there's so much talent here that there are guys that are battling for positions that hit over 300 last year.
It's so crazy. This is what happens when you have a really good baseball program. I mean, it's wild when, my son plays, or he did play a little bit of high school ball, and, you start talking to some of the kids that were like the best players on the team, and Oregon State they're not even sniffing them because they are such a different level of recruiting. Amazing. Okay, Jake, do you have anything to add about batting, about fielders, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I just think overall it's a deep lineup. I think even the guys at Oregon State are going to rely on the pinch hit, like a Cannon or a Tall or a Singer. I think those are guys that the staff's going to go out and have full confidence in. And I think that's huge for, I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion that someone's going to get banged up at some point and be unavailable. So I think having that depth is pretty crucial. We saw it last year when Casper went down. We saw Dallas when Macias come out, and he's now cemented himself as arguably the heart and soul of this team offensively, and a guy who could be a top 3 round draft pick. So I think the depth that Oregon State's built speaks to the culture that Coach Canham's kind of built over his last 3 or 4 seasons, and I think the future past this season is very bright as well.
The culture is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, Mark? I don't know if you were around when Coach Casey was around, but does Coach Canham, does his culture that he has built remind you of Coach Casey's?
It does a lot, and he puts a lot of faith in the players, right? He talks to them and treats them like they're young men that are going into adulthood, and he wants them to be better people than they are baseball players, and I think that speaks volumes about the program. They want to compete at a high level. They hold these guys to high expectations, and the players return that by keeping themselves accountable and holding each other accountable when they go to workouts and they go home for the winter breaks. They come back and they're all in shape and ready to go versus, you've seen some teams out there across the country where guys home, they get a little fat, they get a little lazy, swing gets a little slow by the time they come back in January. Doesn't happen here. Canham just really breeds this into these guys that we're a team. This is the culture. This is how we do things. You don't want to do it, there's other places for you.
And they love him. I mean, just like the guys love Casey. I mean, they love and are always, coming back into the mix. Just a quick plug. Make sure you are a member of BeaverBlitz if you're not already, because baseball season is starting this week. 30% off an annual membership. You get JP's weekly walk-off. She'll get Jake's amazing coverage. And guys, spring football camp starts in like 2 weeks. So it's all of the above. And basketball still going on as well. So it is a busy, busy time right now at BeaverBlitz and around Oregon State sports. Also, make sure you're going to College Baseball Central, reading what Mark puts out all the West Coast information. Follow him on Twitter or X. It's at Margar0010. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I know.
Okay. So great stuff. I was on looking today, and it's nationwide coverage. So make sure you're checking that out if you're a baseball fan. This is a year. The College Baseball Central guys have Oregon State ranked number 8. So top 10, only West Coast team in the top 10. I did see number 13, the closest West Coast team. Number 13 was that team down south that we all love to hate. But that just means more epic battle this year on the diamond. Okay, so looking ahead, what, Mark, is, in your opinion, if you had to pick one thing as being the strength of this Oregon State team? Depth, pitching, what do you got?
It's the depth in pitching. I mean, they really have 6 or 7 guys that could be starting pitchers anywhere else in the country. If they went to another school outside of Arkansas or LSU, that's how good this pitching lineup strikes up with. It matches up with teams across the country where they say this pitching staff is crazy good. The art talent's there. The staff's done a great job. You know, Rich has done a tremendous job of recruiting his guys and getting these guys ready for the season. The depth pitching when I say this, I'm not kidding. This is the deepest and best pitching staff I've ever seen at Oregon State.
Wow. Jake, what is your number one strength of this team?
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. I think the depth in this staff is, again, something I've never seen. I think it's not only top heavy because they've got guys who are legit first round guys, but they've got guys who are, even guys that may only pitch once a weekend for an inning or two that are guys who could be future MLB pitchers. I think this staff's really deep. Coach Dorman's done a hell of a job there, and excited to see what a hopefully fully healthy staff can do throughout this season.
You know, it's interesting. You know, we talked a little earlier about football and the culture. That speaks volumes to the culture in that Oregon State's able to hold that many guys that could really be pitching a lot more at other top programs to be able to keep them on the roster. So I think that is, you know, when you're looking at programs, you know, you see too many football programs that are losing guys yearly because of money or playing time. And so to be able to keep top arms, I mean, Oregon State actually went out and grabbed 2 guys from Washington. Fraser, and then Iva. So I mean, they're pulling guys from other, you know, bigger conference teams. And we are going to talk a little about conference too, if you guys hang tight, because that is a question. Let's talk early schedule, because I think, you know, going into this being a independent, and Mark and I kind of talked before we jumped on, this is going to be a big thing. You know, Oregon State wants to make it to Omaha. And so this is going to be a big year for them. How that plays out. We did just run yesterday, JP's walk-off, looking at the schedule, RPI, preseason RPI. This Friday, Oregon State starts the year back in Surprise, Arizona, taking on Friday. They take on Xavier, Saturday UNLV, Sunday Indiana, and then meet up with Xavier once again on Monday. Thoughts on that? And then they go to Houston and they have a midweek game with Houston. Okay, those first 5 games, nobody's really like jumping out. Is this just a good warm-up, Mark, or, you know, what are your thoughts on this, the College Baseball Classic?
Indiana just made it outside of people's top 25. They're in the top. They're probably 25 to 30. So this team is really, really good. They got Devin Taylor, who's going to be a guy who hits 25, 30 home runs for them this season.
Okay.
The question marks on Indiana pitching. The opening weekend, though, UNLV is a team that's going to compete for the Mountain West Conference Championship also. Okay. So as far as RPI goes, they're going to get a lot of wins. They're going to eat up some wins, give the Beavers back some RPI. Same with Indiana.
Okay.
Xavier, they're going to compete in the Big East. We're going to see what happens there. Last year, they went in. I don't know if they have that kind of team like they did a year ago, but it's good. It's opening weekend. It's all right. Houston is not my favorite. I think that they're going to have a down season this year. They lost quite a bit of talent. But those first 5 games, if you're looking at a game that you really want to pay any attention to, tune into that Indiana game, because that's going to be a real test early.
Sunday at 11, Flow Sports will be showing that one if you're not down in the desert. So then Oregon State will stay in Texas. They're actually staying in Texas for 2 weeks. Start off in Round Rock, Texas at the Round Rock Classic. Friday, February 21st through Sunday, February 23rd. They take on Virginia, Oklahoma, and Minnesota. Bigger names, Mark. What are your thoughts on those three opponents?
Virginia, that's a top 10 matchup we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have them anywhere from 2 to 5, right? And it's because they're one of the most complete teams in the country, and O'Connor is one of the best coaches in the country. They've brought back a ton of talent. They're a team that might hit 200 home runs. That's the kind of talent they have. So it's going to be really important to get after that Friday night game and see what Keljo can do in a spotlight game there. Oklahoma's a good team also. They're just outside people's top 25, sitting there in 25 to 30 range as well. Skip Johnson, another guy who's been to Omaha, another team that's taken teams there. Minnesota, not so much. That's a rebuilding team this year. But those first 2 games, that Friday and Saturday, are must-watch baseball.
Got it. Good. And then the Beavers are in Arlington, Texas for the College Baseball Series benefiting Shriners Children's. Friday, February 2nd through Sunday, March 2nd. Friday, February 28th through Sunday, March 2nd. They have Baylor, Auburn, and Ohio State. What are your thoughts on those 3?
Baylor's in a rebuild mode right now still. Don't sleep on them. They have some talent. They brought in some JC guys. They're going to be all right. That Auburn team is going to be good. And it really depends on who's going to be the starting pitcher for them at that time. You might see Cade Fisher. You might see somebody else. But that's a good team in Auburn. Ike Irish is one of the top catchers in the country. He might be a first-round draft pick. That's how good he is behind the dish. Okay. And Ohio State's going to be better. They just signed Justin Hare this year to be their new head coach, who took Campbell to 4 of the last 5 regionals. I mean, he took the Campbell Camels there. So he's going to Ohio State. He's going to build this program. They're on a rebuild, but don't be afraid of that team. They might be pretty good.
Okay, Jake, what is your takeaway from those first 3 weeks there?
Yeah, I'm excited for that Friday night game against Virginia. That's going to be it's almost reminiscent of that game last year against Arkansas. That was probably the most entertaining game I watched all season, and that was a game that screamed game 3 of the College World Series, even though it was the Beavers' 5th game of the year. And that's kind of how I see this one going. I think it's 2 of the top 5, top 10 teams in the country. I think there's going to be, as up to 6 or 7 future MLB players on the field at a time on that game. And I think that's going to be, like Mark said, must-watch television. I think, it's a shame it's not on a bigger channel, but that's going to be a hell of a baseball game.
Yeah, that should be fun. And then the Beavs actually come home for their very first home series Friday through Sunday, March 7th through 9th, and they host San Diego.
San Diego's good. I mean, they won the WCC last year. They competed. They almost knocked Oregon out of that regional down there in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
They're good. They lost a little bit of talent there, but they're going to be good again this year. They brought in some more JC guys. It's a competitive team. It's a good test, but it's good for the Beavers to get home after those first 3 weeks on the road.
So early national outlook, like I mentioned earlier, College Baseball Central has Oregon State ranked 8th. Mark, you want to talk about the top 10? Just kind of give, Arkansas, I'm sure, is already there. Tennessee, LSU. Those are kind of the always. Yeah. But give me your top 10.
When you look at this top 10 across the country, you've got ACC and SEC heavy, right? I know in our poll, there was 21 of the 25 were from ACC and SEC. That's how good those conferences are. And Oregon State matched right up with those guys. And we had them right there at 8. Some people had them as high as 4. Some people had them as low as 13 in our poll. So really, there was nobody that didn't have them ranked. That's how good we think that this Oregon State team can be. Like I said, LSU, Arkansas, Tennessee, A&M. A&M returns a ton of talent. New head coach, that's the big question mark there, but they have a ton of talent coming back. And then you look over at the ACC and you got Virginia, North Carolina, Stanford's getting talked about how good they're going to be this season. So the ACC and the SEC are where people are going to have their eyes, but Oregon State's going to make people watch them just because of that RPI and where they're going to be in the top 10, hopefully all season long.
How do you think the independent schedule will play out this year for Oregon State and their postseason hopes and dreams?
Big question. I know in the article that I've written that's going to be releasing here tomorrow about breaking down this whole season, I think that if the Beavs get in that 43 win range, they're in the hosting conversation. I think they got to get over 38 to make sure that they get into the tournament. So 38, I think, puts them in the number there. 36 road games helps the RPI. So having only the 20 home games, 36 road games is big. but they got to go win those games. They got to figure out how to win on the road and be ready, because I really have a hard time believing unless this team wins 48 to 50 games, they're not going to be a national seed. And that's just because of the hosting committee. I think that they're going to have a hard time figuring out where to put this team with no conference games, and the schedule down the end of the stretch gets a little tougher. You know, you get Oregon, Hawaii, Iowa, Nebraska. You get some top 25 teams that are right around that outside. But, man, there's some teams in there where they're not in the top 25. There's teams that are not in the top 100. So looking at the total schedule, I think they're going to have to take in all the numbers and figure out. But I think your magic number is 43. I think that puts you in the top 16 to host. 48 to 50 to be a national seed.
Okay. You heard it here, guys. You heard it here. We have a damn question from Tight in the lodge at BeaverBlitz. And I want both of you guys' thoughts on this. We'll start with Jake. Just thoughts on Pac-12 expansion from a baseball perspective.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit weaker. I like the move for baseball a lot less than I do for basketball. I think for basketball, it's going to be a super strong conference. But for baseball, I mean, Boise doesn't have a baseball team. Does Utah State even have a baseball team? They don't, do they? I don't know off the top. I don't think they have a baseball team
either.
Yeah, Colorado State doesn't. So really, there's a lot left on the table, and I don't know how it would work logistics-wise, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Oregon State remain independent. I don't really know the whole details behind that, but I feel like what would be best for Oregon State is to do that, because I think the schedule that they put together this year, honestly, is pretty solid for the scrambling to get everything done. And I think with years of planning in advance, I think Oregon State could build a pretty strong national schedule.
Mark, you and I talked about this. Who do you want to see Oregon State, Washington State, Pac-12 add that could potentially help baseball?
Now, I know there's been talk about Tulane's and Memphis and Texas State. For me, when I look at the baseball side, Texas State's a great add. They would add a lot to the conference. David Pierce, who was the head coach of Texas last year, he's an assistant at Texas State this year. That Texas State team is going to be pretty good. Tulane is another team that makes the tournament consistently and is really good and would be a good addition. Memphis doesn't move the needle for baseball much, so that wouldn't really necessarily help out. But I think if you add Tulane and Texas State and you get teams like Gonzaga, who have been powerhouses in the past, I think you're moving the right direction. I think you're doing okay there. Washington State's a team on the rise also. I love what Coach Choate's done up there. And I think that there's some teams that are going to be better. Fresno State's a team that's won a national championship in the last 20 years. So as far as baseball goes, you'd have to add in some talent. Otherwise, I'd stay independent. Maybe you play those conference foes and just get some weekends out of the way, but staying independent with some of your schedule. The hardest part about independent, right? SEC teams are not going to play you in their off weeks during conference play. ACC teams are not going to play you either. So you're going to have to go out there and play Big 10 or Big 12 as long as they continue to allow that happening during their conference season. So that's the hardest part. You're not going to get SEC or ACC, who are the top two conferences right now.
Yeah, and that's going to help you the most. Yeah. Guys, baseball starts. How excited are you, Mark, that college baseball is here?
Oh, it's my favorite day of the year. I laugh. My wife is down in Vegas right now for a work conference, and she's like, "Do I need to rush home for Valentine's Day?" No, babe, it's opening day. It's okay. I got college baseball. I love you all the rest of the days. This is college baseball opening on February 14th. So she's been telling all of her friends, no, it's opening day. He doesn't need me at home. So I couldn't be any more excited for Friday. And, we've been ramping up for weeks now, and it's time. It's time. I'm so ready. Again,
if you guys haven't checked it out, go check out Mark's work and the amazing team at College Baseball Central. Here we have a quick question that popped up from the YouTube. Steve Donnie, can they add Big West teams as baseball only? I don't know how that works rule-wise, so no worries if you don't know either.
Here's the thing. If the Big West doesn't want to break up their conference because they really like what they have across all sports right now, I think they'd have a hard time adding any of those schools in. You're also looking at a Big West conference that if Oregon State jumped in there, they might have 4 tournament teams this year. That's how good it is with Santa Barbara, UC Irvine, and Hawaii. So I don't see Big West jumping over and releasing any teams for baseball only because they're really happy with the conference they have built.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, guys. Again, College Baseball Central, all the great work, and not just Oregon State and the West Coast teams that Mark covers, but it gives you a really good picture overall of the entire country, all those SEC and ACC teams, which Oregon State hopes to meet in Omaha and in the regional action. And again, if you want a little more localized Oregon State coverage, Jake and then JP, Jeff Perrell, start weekly walk-off. We'll have the big preview. I think he's supposed to get that to me tonight, so look for that in the morning, hopefully. Fingers crossed on that. But if you haven't read a JP's walk-off, definitely worth your time. It's a ton of work he puts in each week and a lot of great info. Again, thank you, Mark, so much for joining us. Jake, thanks as always for jumping on. And we'll be back maybe next week, and we'll have another baseball talk preview fall or spring football. But thanks, guys, for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Dan Podcast.